Welcome to Championship Saturday. This is the first of three on your weekend that says champions will be crowned. A championship that will lie itself with just one simple goal, one final race. One driver must beat the other to become champion. We head ourselves over to the heart of Japan because Okayama is the place where battling brings itself to a head. Your Lotus 49's Grand Prix Legend Series now brings itself to a head on the Global Sim Racing channel. My name's Jake Sperry. Along with me for today's action will be Joey Atterbury, Daniel Costello in the director's chair, using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But a circuit that hosted two Formula One races in the 1990s, both won by Michael Schumacher. We'll take a look at what makes this circuit a must stamp for everyone who is starting out in iRacing with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Okayama International Circuit. Located an hour's drive northeast of its titular city, it sits nestled among the green, lush hills in southern Japan. Built in 1990, it's most well known for the two visits Formula One made in 94 and 95. But since then, national and international touring car series have come to race here as well. Otherwise, the two available layouts are mostly used for club racing and amateur track days. The full course is just under 4 kilometers with 11 turns, and the short version is a measly 2 kilometers with 7 turns. It does this by cutting out the portion between Williams and Revolver. While hairpins abound throughout the lap, overtakes tend to be surprisingly hard. The first corner, Atwood Curve, and Hairpin are the main spots where drivers can attempt a traditional pass. Hairpin makes for unique battles though. The unusually steep banking for a road course, plus the switch back into Revolver, means that holding it around the outside can reward a brave driver. However, while it is a more modern facility, runoff in some places is shockingly small, and it can be easy to damage your car. This section in particular around Revolver, Piper, and Redmond gets slightly claustrophobic. The pit entry requires some practice since you must use the inside lane of Mike Knight, otherwise you'll get a penalty. While it might not see as much use in the real world, here on iRacing this track is part of the base content, and so new road racers will find themselves here frequently. With it being suitable for a wide range of styles of cars, it's sure to excite many of the competitors who tackle it.
A beautiful circuit right in the heartland here of Mimasaka in Japan. Not a million miles away from Suzuka, this track, and it held the Pacific Grand Prix out there, but there are great places to make those passes. The first corner comes to mind, and then the hairpin at turn number 5 out on track. But that middle sector of the lap, Joey, from turn 5 all the way to 10 and 11 can be run too wide.
Yes, it can be, and it's relatively small and narrow throughout this entire circuit. Like you heard Jake say, turn number 1, the first corner, probably your best passing opportunity, but 11 turns, 2.31 miles in length. And when I think of Okayama, I think of a technical circuit, so you have to have car placement, and you have to be able to hit your marks on those brake zones and also getting out of those corners. Sector number 2 from turn number 5 all the way through the exit of turn number 9, it's pretty much second gear, sometimes third gear on these little short shoot straightaways, but then the final 2 corners, turn number 10 and turn number 11, they do start to kind of open it up in speed. However, I would still call them medium to slow speed corners. The mechanical grip is all about today.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on how they're able to plant themselves to the circuit, which will have a very low average top speed, but the championships are where interestingness comes to play, and it cannot be any tighter at the top between Mick Claridge and Henry Morse, with Henry Morse having a 10th place as a drop. Jorge Nieva cannot bring himself into the championship battle, but it is as simple as this. If both drivers finish outside of the top 12, Henry Morse will become champion. And ultimately, after that, it's whoever finishes above the other driver, there or thereabouts by 1 point increment, it will be a title declared in favour of whoever finishes higher. So keep an eye on Mick Claridge and Henry Morse. Kevin Verbruchen finds himself in 4th with Gary Ho in 5th. John Olsen is 6th with Gary Quell in 7th. Seb Clapper or Seb Tixier, posing as Seb Clapper, will be in 8th place, ahead of Arturus Kondelis in 9th. And Robert Plumley making his way into the top 10 the world of Kenducci having a good run. F2, with the way that things have turned out by participation, looks like a done deal today, Joey.
Yeah, it certainly seems like David Tomaski is going to wrap up that championship. We do not see Mats Linden in the session right now, so we'll just have to make sure that David goes out there and wraps up those couple laps, make sure he stays in ahead of Tobias Harnby, who's currently sitting in third place. Technically, that can still happen back there. Zen Carr sitting in fourth, nice and calmly inside the top five. Josephine Becker only 3 points ahead of Dawn Peak, and I do see Dawn out there in the session. I'll have to see if Josephine is out there. Then we've got Vera Maki back here in seventh, Alan Graham eighth, Tamas Tuba in ninth, and Willershausen rounding out the top 10 in points. And as you can see, a couple of those still very close there towards the end of the top 10.
The extra H in Thomas making the difference there. The Cup of Nations is scored as the best of your nation gets the points for the country. So the United States are on top, 17 clear of Spain. So there could still be a twist in the tail yet in the Cup of Nations. Tuvalu are currently third, which is being run by Mick Claridge, as the United Kingdom are fourth. Hong Kong are ahead of Sao Tome and Principe, which is run by John Olsen and Rolly Wallbank in sixth place, as the Netherlands are seventh. Italy a little ways away in eighth, as Lithuania are ninth through Arturas Kandelis, and Sweden just 5 points back of that, rounding out your top 10. But the questions will be asked. If you're here for the first time, you're joining us on the Global Sim Racing channel. What is Grand Prix Legends? Well, this will tell you all about it.
And we're here for the final round, round number 12 of 12. We're going to be doing 22 laps around this Okayama circuit, and it is an open setup. That means you get to open up that garage tab, tweak and tune on the car, so that way it handles perfectly around this Japanese circuit. No spare cars, so if you pick up any damage by running into somebody or go off the racetrack and hit a wall and have some damage on the car, you're going to have to live with it or bring it down to pit lane and get it fixed up. In terms of the penalties, there is a drive-through at 17 incident points and then a disqualification at 25 incident points. But Jake, these cars are so fragile, we rarely get to see that.
Second times are about to come in here with 3 minutes remaining in qualifying, and it is the Basque thief, Oye Thamayoa, who is in complete control at the top of qualifying on a 129.4. Ricardo Ruiz is second, and Gary Ho currently makes up the podium as it stands in qualifying. So you got your rivals or your main challengers, 5th and 7th. As it stands between Mick Claridge and and Henry Morse, who's now down to 8th because of John Olsen. So a lot of times are now starting to come in. Stephen Place has gone 9th. Mick Claridge back to 2nd as Samayoa. 129.490 is a 10th. Clear of the field as it stands. Jorge Nieva yet to put a timing on the board. Does he have something to say?
I've been watching this lap from Nieva, and it seems pretty quick so far, and Mick Claridge actually does not go faster, or at least not fast enough to challenge that pole position. Look at the big slide there from Nieva through what was the beginning half of turn number 9. Now put the power down. I see JDS slotted himself into 5th. Let's see what this first lap from this number 1 car gets us. Remember, you need a 129 to be in the top 6. Looks like he's going to put down. The start-finish line is so far down here. But a 129.6, so he will be in the top 6, but he's got one more lap to go.
Yep, and we'll just have enough time to get that time over the line. So Nieva needs to rock it. Bruno Santamaria is there in 16th position and looking to try and jump up the order here. Is just behind the likes of Alan Graham by a couple tenths of a second. That's a lot better, a 130.2. That's good enough for the 6th row. Jumps just ahead of Stephen Place and gets that sorted. Brad Fenley is currently on 0 laps out there at the moment, so Brad is going to get some time in what is the most Australian car you can possibly have. It's a VB on the side. Victoria's bitter.
And the number 26 car is going to wrap his way around, call it turn number 11 here, the last corner on this circuit. Let's see what he's able to put down here in terms of that lap time. It's not going to be super competitive right now, just kind of towards the back of the field, put him on the grid. But this number 1 car of Nieva with 40 seconds left is rounding the final couple of corners. And I just want to put something in perspective right now. Our top, let's see here, top 12 in qualifying only separated by less than a second right now.
And that tells you that there is a high turn of cadence. Final corner then approaches for Jorge Nieva. Makes the charge then over towards the line. 29.685 is currently his best. He crosses 29.581. That's good enough for the front row. And your championship contenders are off the front row here today at Okayama. That was something we weren't necessarily expecting. But Jorge Nieva has proven once again that he still has pace, that he can challenge. It's two Spaniards on the front row, one from the Basque region, one that represents everywhere. Oye Samayoa on pole on a 129.490. Jorge Nieva just 2 thousandths quicker than Mick Claridge, who will go from third. Ricardo Ruiz will start fourth with Henry Morse in fifth, ahead of Gary Ho and JDS Jack David Spickett. Kevin Verbruchen will start in eighth as Gary Quellins goes ninth, and John Olsen rounds out your top 10.
And then in 11th, we do have that number 13 of Bruno Santamaria. Stephen Place going to be lined up next to him in 12th with Mikhail Zabala in 13th. Marco Salgado starting in 14th. David Rossi back here in 15th. Alan Graham 16th. Shinsuke Tashima in 17th with Bjorn Ackerman in 18th. David Riccardi back here in 19th. And Juan Rodriguez rounding out your top 20.
35 cars here today, and Kurt Clapper will go from 21st with Robert Plumley in 22nd. Henry Virumaki is there alongside the Argentine Pedro Temiladri in 24th. Zenkar and Sandeep Banerjee are on row 13 with Matthew Maudsley and Tobias Hanvey in 28th. Radoslav Babchik starts 29th, the last car to set a time, meaning Jason Clapper leads the rest of the field in terms of those who didn't set a time, which includes Seb Clapper or Seb Tixier, Brad Fenley, Michael Grissinger, David Tomaszki, and Don Peake, the 35 that get themselves set and are situated for racing action here today. They know how critical the run to turn number one is going to be. We know how aggressive Henry Morse was last time out at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Mick Claridge knows he's just got to stay ahead. He knows last time as well, getting a win over Oye was huge, but now he's just got to try and defend the title, because your top drivers right now are not those at the top of the standings. So this is all about measuring expectations here today, and here in the land of the rising sun, who is going to stand up, make themselves counted as 2 minutes hits the clock and everybody gets themselves ready for engine notes to rise. Green flag drops and we are underway here from Okayama. It's a very good start from the top three. Henry Morse doesn't get away too good and he's immediately under pressure. It's Nieva and Samayoa who find themselves together, but critically it's Gary Ho trying to hold the outside line and it's not going to work. Henry Morse defends his fifth place. Jack David Spickett and Kevin Verbruchen now trying to fall into line through the Moss S.
Look at the line of Lotus 49s as we head down into turn number 4. This long uphill hairpin where you got to be able to put the power down as soon as possible. A couple of these cars, including Gary Ho, skating a little bit wide, trying to squirm their way up this long back straightaway here into this turn number 5 brake zone. You see the top 5 here, single file for now.
Yeah, it's a clean start from everybody, and that is huge. And there are searches about right now. Mick Claridge under pressure from Ricardo Ruiz, trying to move up then into third position. They are trying to fend the Nations Cup away from the United States. And as it currently stands, with Henry Morse down in 5th position at the moment, he would be scoring in terms of today points per race 46. So the gap would be 14 points. They've got 17 chase down. They need a couple places gone. Mikhail Zabala having a huge amount of a wiggle there through the middle of the corner, and that was going to be huge in terms of how you navigate around and try and find your line with Bruno Santamaria, Stephen Place, all waiting in this train. But a lap completed and a lot to think about, including spring settings, according to Jack David Spickett.
I saw that in the iRacing chat. I think he's on more of a soft setup, which makes sense here around Okayama, but he's not sure how it's going to last the entire race, as Robert Plumley here in this yellow and blue number 15 seems to have made his way off track in what is turn number 1 at the end of the first lap. As we jump back up to our lead battle here, this is the baby blue number 3, Mick Claridge, trying to keep in touch with our top 2.
Yeah, and needs to, because every position he can put in front of Henry Morse is another car that Henry's got to try and chase down, and I think that's going to be the big telling factor as far as this race goes. If you can keep yourself with a car in between you, you're not having that direct battle for position and championship, and that will give him car in the early stages of this race, because this is one of those circuits where, especially the more power that you put around it, you need an extra 100, 200 meters per straight to go and make a pass. This is a thinking driver's circuit as we take a look from Mick Claridge. Look at Ricardo Ruiz. He is nibbling at every single apex to try and get as wide in the mirrors as possible.
A great effort from that number 10 in qualifying, was able to produce some good track position, and now he's trying to take advantage of that track position. Ricardo Ruiz, who I'm talking about, is it looks like Bjorn Ackerman in the Unicorn machine, had a little bit of an off at what is call it the exit of turn number 8, entry to turn number 9. It is such a tricky low-speed section over there, Jake. I really kind of refer to it almost as an autocross track. That's how much you have to tiptoe through that area.
Yeah, you have to be very reliant to take a lovely look at the scaffolding tin roof that we got there around the stands of turn number 1. Alan Graham in the 33 car, currently in 20th position. He's made some good progress off the start. Tema Ladry has done very well also, and there is a car dropping back, and that is Ricardo Ruiz, who's dropped 4 places. He overcooked it into the corner and had a massive slide, and that drops him right to the back of the group. So suddenly Henry Morse finds himself in 4th, but he's not having much love there in that 4th place, because look, that's Jack David Spickett trying to attack him for position, and Henry wants to be the one attacking and staying with Mick Claridge. That gap 1 second is critical.
Yeah, that was JDS with just a little bit of a lockup there in what was turn number 4. He's the one that's running that little bit of a softer setup, and when you mention those straightaways needing to be another 100, 200 meters longer, that's where the benefit of this soft setup is going to kind of come into play. This is the replay here in the top right of the screen of what exactly happened to Bjorn Ackerman here. Let's see if he just kind of squeezes on the throttle. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Spins up those rear tires and kind of goes for a ride. But back to the soft setup, what's going to really happen is that the car is going to roll a little bit more. It's going to dive on the brakes. It's going to squat more under acceleration. And theoretically, when you need that mechanical grip, a softer car will be faster a little bit more than the other competitors.
Yeah, so Jack David Spickett's trying to make that soft setup work, but you could argue in the same way, if you make the car slightly softer, it's more aggressive early on in the stint, but later on, that's going to pay on the tyre life.
You could probably argue both ways, right? In that a harder setup, you need to be able to manage that throttle modulation and not spin up those rear tires. So I think it kind of goes both ways, but you have to understand what's underneath you. As soon as you understand it's a soft setup, you drive it as such. If you've got a little bit more of a stiff setup, you need to roll the speed through the middle of the corners. It's kind of which do you want? Do you want a point and shoot car that you park in the apex and launch off the corner, a soft setup, or do you want to be able to roll the speed through the middle, aka a stiffer setup?
Yeah, you can see that Jack David Spickett having to work a bit of counter steer on the power coming out of Piper's corner, and really is trying to get on the limit of grip through each and every single run through. It's never easy as you try and navigate through that. Your biggest gainer, by the way, through the field is, no surprises, Seb Clapper, as this is what happened to Davide Ricciardi heading down into the hairpin. So this will be a battle on the brakes. Who's going to, and a lock-up at the rears. Then so Ricciardi goes around and has to be spread eagle across the middle of the circuit.
Oh, and then so close when he finally grabbed that gear. I think that he was doing a terrific job trying to stay patient. You don't always get that vision out the side, so sometimes it is kind of tough to sit there in the middle of the racetrack as Jack David Spickett continues his attack on Henry Moore. Same thing that Jorge Nieva is trying to do on Oye up at the front here, but about a 1.3 second gap between our top two and now third place.
Yep, so this will be about bragging rights between Nieva and Samayoa. They both want to prove that they are lightning fast. Oye is a stage hunter out there. He's very much the sort of driver who comes in whenever he feels like it, looks to pick up points, looks to pick up wins, but isn't too fussed about an overall championship. We know how quick he is. We know how lightning fast he is. Nieva just hasn't been able to stand up to the likes of those. He had a wonderful start of the season with 2 wins and 2 second places, but missing Jerez and missing Spa has really cost Nieva, especially with the result he picked up at Phoenix.
Well, and now I think that these two are kind of working, I shouldn't say working together, but they're not fighting amongst themselves, right? Nieva's not trying to go up there and shove the nose into any brake zones on this white number 2 car, so there's no need for Oye to defend up front. Therefore, they can just continue to click off those extremely fast laps, try to pull it out over this car right here, McClarage, who was actually that last lap the fastest car on the racetrack. Seems like Mick has got the memo. He needs to get up on it.
Well, he's got to go quick because Henry Morse did a 29.7 on that last lap and was only half a tenth slower. So that's the level of pace you got to go at because Henry's turning up the screws, and so Mick's going to have to do exactly the same. And this is where it gets difficult because it's 1.1, 1.2. Henry Morse is a threat at 1.2 seconds, but definitely not to go and make an overtake. So that's what Henry Morse is trying to do. Although he can't directly affect what happens with Mick Claridge, he still can keep the pace up and say, you got to run at 100%, you got to go at 10 tenths.
And Okayama's not a draft track. We always kind of think about, oh, you need to be within 1.0, 1.1 seconds or so in order to really get that slipstream. And yes, you do have a little bit of an effect on the back straightaway, but this racetrack is all about sectors like this where it's maximizing that rolling speed, being able to get up off of the corner. So it really does come down to how the driver is able to attack this racetrack.
And speaking of attack, Jack David Spickett doing a wonderful job for Mick Claridge at the moment, keeping Henry Morse honest right now. You can see the rotation of the suspension then as they go through and try and figure out where they go off of this final corner over towards the first corner. JDS thinks about, have I got an angle to the inside? And again, the answer is no for that one at this point in time. It's a very tough battle that they've got. 300ths in favour of Henry Morse on that last lap compared to Mick Claridge. It was 1.1 over the line, but you are every single corner trying to figure out, have I got a little advantage here? Have I got a little advantage there? We're already on lap 7 of this race, so that's a third of the race back in the books. And so that's your hi, how you doing? We found out it's now going to be a case of, can you get into the rhythm? Can you find a way to claw back the time? And can you find any opportunities? Because the biggest key that we're seeing right now is Nieva and Samayoa are pulling away from Mick Claridge, and that is the only thing that Henry Morse can hope for, is that those top 2 go 2 seconds clear.
And they're not kind of pulling away by huge chunks, you know. It's maybe a tenth, maybe 2/10 a lap out here. So yeah, it's equated to about 1.3, 1.5 seconds, depending on where they are on the racetrack. And this battle, this trio right here, I don't necessarily feel like JDS is a ton faster than Henry Morse in that number 5 car, because the lap times, they just don't get that much faster. Our leaders doing 129.6s. This group right here just did a 129. I'm seeing JDS a 129.6 as well. So even if he clears that number 5 car, I don't think that all of a sudden he's just going to eat up the ground to Mick Claridge. It's kind of one of these battles that, do I decide to try to pass him, or do I decide to try to work with him to kind of close up that gap again?
I've just seen Mikel Sabala have a spin going into about turn number 7, which has proven to be very tough and difficult. So with that spin that's brought itself into play, that has certainly made life really, really tough. Close again, it is nearer the front.
I saw that Seb Clapper was just able to get past Shinsuke Tashima, or I should say temporarily got past Shinsuke Tashima in turn number 1, kind of overcooked it, as now Tobias Harnvey now drops down to 27th place. I was noticing that Tobias was having a pretty good run, but all of a sudden, I think a little bit of an oopsie down there. Turn number 1 has now dropped him down to 30th.
Yeah, so all that time has now dropped itself away, and it really will hurt. There's Shunsuke Tashima, who is in a wonderful place, but Seb Clapper jumping by and moving up into 15th with that pass. Well constructed, well put together, but that's what you have to try and avoid, getting into trouble, losing that time, and realizing just how tough of a circuit this is.
And as we're kind of watching Seb back here, I think that he's got, call it a handful of more cars that are directly on his plate in front of him. That includes Marco Salgado, David Rossi, Stephen Place, as well as Zabala. However, once you get to that number 23 car, it's another 6.5, almost 7 seconds to go break the top 10 up here with Gary Quellen. So I think that's kind of the carrot to chase for Seb Tixier out there, is can he actually finish inside the top 10?
Yeah, so it's all about, can you find that chance to jump up? And this is sometimes what you look at. Seb Tixier has been up near the front and has been challenging, and decides, you know what, for this season, I'm going to honour what the likes of Jason Clapper does, which is go from the back of the field and charge on forward. It's lovely to see, and we see it so often. Kevin Verbruggen on the back of this group in 6th place. He's a passenger at the moment on this caboose, and there's a big lock up into the corner, and Jack David Spickett had to take a double take as well. I think you can accuse them all of break watching and bull hawking.
Yeah, I call a little bit of maybe draft breaking out there. A little bit of a silly term that I've made up, but the Kevin Verbruggen machine had a huge lockup into turn number 5. And when you're that 3rd, 4th, 5th car in line in a draft train, you just have to be careful of what your top speed actually is. Let's say if you're doing 130 miles an hour running by yourself, you might actually be up there 133, 134, 135 miles an hour, depending on where you are in that draft train. So you just have to adjust that brake marker ever so slightly.
You certainly do, and Jack David Spickett now dropping a little bit of time and realising that Henry Morse is trying to extend that gap out. A 29.6 on that last lap matches Mick Claridge, 29.5 from the leading duo out in front. This is very much a game of nickel and diming at the moment. This isn't the flashy sort of racing where you see gaps of half a second getting put away. This is hard yards. This is like watching American football in the rain.
This is, you're right, very, very tough racing, and it's very mental racing, right? Because if you miss a marker out there, all of a sudden you lose a 10th, you miss another marker because you're on the back foot, all of a sudden that 10th turns into a few tenths out there, and all of a sudden that car is kind of running away from you out there in the distance. Jack David Spickett is trying to avoid that because the last couple laps, it looks like we had problems with the number 10 car.
Yep, spinning it about down at the hairpin. It's an on-camber corner, so it's easy to throw it in, but he's overcooked it on the brakes, and there goes through Gary Ho now up into 7th place. He'll only lose the 1 spot, but Ricardo Ruiz running out of patience.
Yeah, and that's kind of the second mistake that we've seen out of Ruiz. Remember down there in turn number 4 earlier this race, had a big-time wiggle that cost him some track position, so did a great job in qualifying as his pack back here by David Rossi is certainly getting a little bit feisty back here as Shinsuke Toshima in that number 22 car was taking a look.
Yeah, Marco Antonio Lopez will be side by side with, trying to figure this out, but gives it up going through the corner. But Shunsuke runs a bit wide. Home soil for Shunsuke Toshima, so we'll have the local knowledge of what makes this circuit tick. But every driver should have an understanding of this. This is one of the iRacing free tracks.
You always learn Okayama out here. It looks like we're going wheel to wheel with 14th and David Rossi back here. Zabala, also Seb Clapper finally was able to find his way through. He's the one who's kind of running off into the distance, leading this group right here. But yeah, Jake, this is one of the tracks that you very, very first learn in iRacing. It is free content out here, so even though it is one of these international tracks, it is very well used.
2 tenths on that last lap for Henry Morse, and it pulls the gap back to 1 second over the line, and just a few hundredths and thousandths that are there. And Mick Claridge drops a couple tenths here and a couple tenths there. Henry Morse will be upon him like a rash. There is Jorge Nieva keeping this one calm with Oye Samayoa. Issue being that he's at 6 tenths, half a second each and every single time. He doesn't have anything to break through. It's very much a case of unstoppable force meets immovable object.
It's going to be really, really tough, you're right, for Jorge to be able to get up there and actually pass Oye for the lead. They've been so close on those lap times. Let's see what it is this last time by. And in fact, only 6/100ths of a second separating these two top drivers in that last lap time. So I think it's going to be a mistake out of that number 2 car if Nieva wants to try to challenge for the win.
Well, if Jorge Nieva wants this, and Jorge Nieva needs this, he's going to have to do a little bit more out there because they are pulling that gap away. It is now at 2 seconds, and Henry Morse is now in within 9 tenths of a second. He took another 10th out of Mick Claridge, and this is a game of inches at the moment that we're starting to see. Lap on lap, the game continues to be this challenge, and Samayoa, the Basque thief, looking to try and steal another victory away from those who are up there at the front. It's being really, really hard fought for at the moment. There is Henry Morse just flicking about 9/10, 8/10 of a second, and it's all about how aggressive Henry turns into the corner and looks to push off the exit, because every single apex, he is gaining a tenth in the apex and losing it on the exit.
It's kind of that double-edged sword, is that where do you find the speed? And traditionally, as a road racer, you want to find the speed on the corner exit. So that means the harder you charge the front half of the corner, it kind of compromises your exit on the back half. It is always better to drive it slow going into the corner and then really launch out of it. It's kind of a interesting dynamic to wrap your head around, especially when you're sitting in the race car. Sometimes driving slower actually equals a faster lap time.
Well, Henry Morse was still quicker on that last lap. The difference, though, Joey, 9/1000ths of a second. That's not going to cut the mustard.
No, it's certainly not. However, if there is kind of a change in the landscape of this race right now, it is Henry Morse starting to close it in that little bit on Mick Claridge. It was up there at about 1.5 seconds at about lap number 7, lap number 8 or so, and now that we're kind of halfway through this race, he has closed it down to what is 0.8 of a second on the back straightaway. I don't think that the slipstream is really going to kind of pull in this number 5 car. However, sometimes that's all the driver needs, is that little bit of confidence saying, hey, I am within slipstream range. Maybe I am getting that little bit closer.
Maybe there is, and look at that gap, 6/7 of a second. He really is motoring on this lap, is Henry Morse, and he's allowing himself to close up because he's dropping Jack David Spickett. He is approaching Mick Claridge, and he knows he's only going to have a handful of opportunities to make this happen. This is old guard versus new guard. Mick Claridge, arguably the most successful driver in a Lotus 49. Henry Morse looking for a maiden title.
These cars are sliding around this Okayama circuit. Remember, these cars do not have any ABS. They don't have any traction control. They've got no aerodynamic additions to them. It is all that raw driver feel of seeing exactly what this car is going to do when you chuck it into the corner. They got the H-pattern gearboxes, so if you're looking for more of a traditional feel of how one of these vintage machines really drives, these Lotus 49s attract that crowd.
They do, and Henry now finds himself in place. Remember, they are battling 3rd and 4th positions. The difference is 51 points for 3rd and 48 points for 4th. 3 points difference. It's a swing that will determine the championship. If these drivers switch positions, Henry Morse would lead the championship by 1 if he gets by Mick Claridge and moves into 3rd position. Mick's going to be forced to work that Ford DFV Cosworth engine and do everything he can with it, an engine that is so well known, and Cosworth, of course, now soon to partner with iRacing.
I'm really surprised just kind of at the performance drop-off of Claridge right here, maybe towards, call it, the last few laps of the race, but I did not expect it right in the middle of the race. I think this is more of a little bit of a mistake here in these last couple laps. We'll see if Mick Claridge can kind of gather it back up, because Henry Morse right now at 29.5, not the fastest car on the racetrack. However, Mick Claridge at a 29.9, definitely struggling.
Yeah, this is where I think Mick's realised that his biggest benefit was the slipstream in front of him. Now he's going to have to work on his own to try and keep that pace up. And Henry is over the back, and maybe a bit of psychology's there. Mick running 29.9s, 29.5s for Henry Morse over the last 2 laps has brought him into range. But catching is one thing, passing's another. The late Murray Walker will always tell you that one as they go. And if you want to set it up, it's here, the Atwood curve, which is always the corner, because you've got to try and put the power as early as possible without the back stepping out. Twice it does for Henry Morse, and so Mick Claridge has reprieve on this lap.
Not only are you accelerating up through that exit of turn number 4, but you're getting up through some gear changes as well. So you have a few different little power down traction moments, and now comes the real test here. Turns 5 and 6. Look at how much Henry Morse is really kind of carving these inside apex curves. Mick Claridge was just a little bit off in the prior corner, but right now here in this little short shoot straightaway before turn number 8, seems like Claridge is back on that racing line.
Yeah, and finding himself with a bit of stability out there on circuit and doing a great job. There's other battles up and down the order, of course. You've got the likes of Jason Clapper, who's just gone through over the last laps or so on Bruno Santamaria, who's fighting Pedro Temaladri for position, for example. That's 19th and 20th. You've got the Toshima, Zabala, Rossi group in 13th. And we got to look then around at Santamaria getting himself in this position, because Temaladri is going to run to the inside, the blue and white of Argentine colours, looking to bring themselves to play round the outside then of Hobbs Corner. Very difficult, and might have to try again at Mike Knight to get this move done. Won't work.
Let's see about an over-under maybe through this last corner here, but it certainly seems like Bruno, just a little bit too fast going in. It's going to compromise his exit, so we'll see if Temaladri can do anything down this front straightaway. You see Bruno kind of doing the serpentine. Temaladri looking deep down the inside, but Santamaria is going to hold him off here in turn number 1, for now at least.
For now, with 7 laps to go, or 6.5 for your leaders at the moment. Robert Plumley on the recovery will make the launch down the inside, and that will be Sandeep Banerjee dispatched of then, and Robert Plumley makes another place. That's why he got up to 10th in the championship. It's off camber though through Williams at turn 2, but Plumley can get the drive on the exit.
Nicely done there. So now we jump back up to our leader, who's got a nice 1 second gap over Jorge Nieva. This is actually stretched out just that little bit, so he is no longer under pressure from that number 1 car, and as you saw, just maybe a little bit of puff of dirt on the entry of that final corner for Nieva. He is trying everything possible to reel it back in.
He's doing what he can, and I think that you look at what Jorge Nieva's been looking at, he's just been slowly broken over the course of this race. It's like watching someone on the torture rack, another revolution of it, and the gap stretches more, and there's nothing there. Your biggest mover, Seb Clapper, is 11th from 31st on the grid, a gain of 20.
Nicely done. Get the onboard shots of his full motion rig out here. Always enjoy seeing Seb in all of our races. Doesn't matter if it's the 49s, the 79s, or wherever I see him. And you see in the H pattern shifter, the true Lotus steering wheel, as well as the virtual reality. You want to talk about immersion factor? I think that's probably as close as you're going to get to driving one of these Lotus 49s without a big wind tunnel fan directly in front of you.
Yeah, that is as close can get for the way that Seb runs out there and is doing a brilliant job. He is French by nature, lives out of Singapore, representing the United States by calendar. And that's Mikel Sabala dropping down a couple places, 14th to 16th. Again, turn 4 proving difficult.
Every single corner on here is a tricky one, but yeah, turn number 4 is one of those that you try to think that you've got it, but then all of a sudden you approach it the next lap and just kind of slips away from you again as we look towards what is 6 laps to go here for this battle on what is 3rd place overall. But like you were saying, Jake, more importantly, that championship.
5 laps as it ticks over, and the championship is on your screen right now. Henry Morse versus Mick Claridge, and this is where it gets difficult for drivers like Jack David Spickett and Kevin Verbruggen. They have no piece of this championship. They want to gain the places, but if they want to gain the places, they have to insert themselves into the championship fight.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be in. However, they've been playing very nice this entire race, so I wouldn't expect them to go up there and make any unnecessary moves or cause chaos. I think that if we're going to see something, I'd look towards Henry Morse, maybe deep into one of these break zones, maybe a little bit more of an unorthodox pass to try to get Mick Claridge on the back foot.
Well, one of the things that makes life difficult on making these passes is how telegraphed you have to be about them. Because these cars have all the power but none of the braking prowess, Joey, you have to really show in advance that you want to make the move.
You do have to present the car just like how Kevin Verbruggen was presenting the car to Jack David Spickett directly behind this. So in the rear view mirror, almost a change for position. That was JDS under threat from Verbruggen, but now they both settled back into line. So to your talking point maybe a couple minutes ago, Jake, it just kind of settled itself out. Now we've got 2 pairs of 2 battling.
And that makes life so much easier for Henry Maurice. He's given license to attack as here comes Kevin Verbruggen, who looks to the inside of the opening corner, chucks it in, blocks it up beautifully. What a pass!
Nicely done, parked it right there at the apex of turn number 1, but now slips wide there at turn number 2 apex. Unfortunately, though, Jack David Spickett could not put the power down, so it looks like Verbruggen's going to stay in what is the top 5 for now.
There's lap traffic to navigate through as well. That will be Zen Car that's in front of these drivers with 4 laps to go. Jorge Nieves trying to get back to Samayoa. It's 0.8 of a second at the front of this field. Mick Claridge once again has the answers for the test paper of will you defend at this next section. But now as they go through the revolver, this left-hander down the hill, only running about 110 kilometers an hour through this section and really working to try and find any angle that's there. The tyres will be screaming through each and every corner.
And you see how close Maurice is getting on every single apex. A little bit of a nose to the inside here. Mick Claridge has left him room. Let's see about the traction coming out of the corner. Certainly seems like that blue number 3 car was able to hang on for now, but through the final corner here, let's see who gets out of it the best. Mick Claridge is able to put the power down nicely.
Yeah, and then with the traffic in front, he'll get a tow as well from Zen Car, who's going to have to try and stay out of the way. They are really ticking down these laps now. Lap 20 of 22. 3 laps to go in the championship. And Henry Maurice just trying to see what can you do. Not going to be much help through the middle of Williams corner. And you're going to have to worry about this now through the Moss S. Is there going to have to be a deviation of line here? This isn't ideal. And now it's going to pull side by side. Zen Car stays to the outside. There goes the look then from Henry Maurice. Now, can he diamond the apex off and get the drive? No. I think Mick Claridge has got clearance again.
Oh, but a big wiggle from Claridge in the second part of that traction event, and now Henry Maurice actually does have the slipstream hard on the brakes. Maurice is going to look down to the inside. Claridge is going to give him room. Almost contact between the two. Henry Maurice now on driver's right, the wrong side of the road. Claridge is going to have the apex. Maurice off into the gravel.
There goes Verbruggen. There goes Jack David Spickett. And maybe there goes the title.
Oh my goodness, that could have been the deciding factor. The brake zone going into what was turn number 6. They were even coming out of turn number 5, but Claridge had the inside line and pretty much Henry Maurice had to try to hang on. But now Claridge actually under threat, under pressure.
Now, if Mick's clever about this, he can allow 2 cars through, and he doesn't really have to fight for it. If they present anything at the inside, this is championship protection. Just let them go, I would say at that point. Samayoa with the fast lap of the race, but as he jams on the brakes, Kevin Verbruggen now is going to be a very interesting tale on how this goes. Mick Claridge has driven wonderfully here in 3rd place, but Henry Maurice now has to gather it up, because just like a Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, one mistake will cost 3 or 4 places, and those are the fine margins that define a season.
And that's exactly what happened, but I have to disagree with you. If I'm Mick Claridge, I'm not going to give up these 2 positions. Now, I know mathematically it might work out. However, if you give up 2, all of a sudden Henry Maurice is right back in your rearview mirror. So I am on the full attack. Let's see what happens here down into this brake zone. And it certainly seems like these 2 cars behind Mick Claridge going to play nicely.
For now, though, with only a lap and a bit to go, it's been a very tall order race. And lest we forget, we've still got a race on for the victory, Joey, between Samayoa and Nieva.
Yeah, that has closed back up. What was 1.2 seconds is now down to about 0.6 of a second. And you see we're going to be coming up to the white flag here. 1 lap to go for all of our drivers once they reach turn number 11, exit and rocket themselves down this front straightaway here. We've got both our pictures, lead in the top right, battle for what is 3rd in the championship here on the main screen.
1 lap left then in the season. Samayoa has himself with control in the top right, but Henry Maurice has got to leapfrog both Kevin Verbruggen and Jack David Spickett to get himself to try and get by Mick Claridge. This is a tall order of the highest magnitude on the final lap, and he's got to figure out a way where they're going to make things happen. I think he's reliant on Kevin Verbruggen having a throw down the inside, and he can't afford to pressure Jack David Spickett too much, or they'll lose contact contact with the group. Samayoa gets enough drive then to go by the likes then of Brad Fenley. That's going to give enough of a gap then down into the hairpin, but it's about Verbruggen, and will he have a throw for the podium on the final lap of this race? He thinks about it, moves to the inside, and he can't quite get the angle down there. It's not going to work. They find so close. Up in the air goes Henry Morse, and he'll find himself dropping back off of that group. He got too close. Icarus, your wings are burnt, and there's nothing left except to hope for a send from the heavens from Kevin Verbruggen, who thinks about the inside again, going into the next left-hander. It's all right from here, and for the moment, it's Oye Samayoa through Mike Knight, and heading himself then to the final corner, and that will be his win now to say, I've done what's needed to win this one. Nieva is second, but when at Alton Park, when Mick Claridge was having issues, he said, I'm quitting this season. It's now a championship for Mick Claridge. Oh God, prevails again.
Beautiful race there from Mick to be able to close it out, and just so unfortunate for Henry Morse, kind of lost out on the battle in the same area of the racetrack, not once but twice, as we get the field to come across through this start-finish line and get the rest of everybody to wrap up this Lotus 49 championship, this Lotus 49 season here at Okayama.
What a first season for Henry Morse, to say how close he could get. He could taste the championship. Jack David Spickett in the end would finish in 6th place as they headed over towards the line, as I believe he just let that one go, or maybe out of fuel heading over to the end. So that really proving to be a tough day at the office for many. Still got the likes of David Tomaszki though, who of course with his entry here today finds himself only a few places behind Tobias Hernvey. And Joey, I think this will confirm an F2 crown for David.
It should here. This number 34 car just kind of taking a victory lap here, and will round out lap number 23 right now. Complete this race as your F2 champion, David Tomaszki. I do want to give a good shout out here to Tobias Harnvey as well, who should wrap up, I believe, 2nd place in that championship. He was having a great run as well, and then kind of fell through the order towards the end.
And so confirmation of results will be on your screen here from the Okayama International Circuit. Oye Samayoa will stage hunt again and pick up the win, 9/10 in the end over Jorge Nieva. But the story of today is about that man in third, Mick Claridge, the never say die attitude, and picking up the championship then by a handful of points. Kevin Verbruggen will finish 4th. Henry Morse will take 5th, as Jack David Spickett is 6th, and Gary Ho is in 7th place with a quiet run today. Ricardo Ruiz had himself a few issues. He was playing a factor early on in the race, but drops back to 8th. John Olsen will finish 9th, just ahead of Gary Quellin.
In comes our biggest mover of the day. That is Seb Clapper out here in 11th place, going up 20 positions. Stephen Place finishing in 12th with David Rossi here in 13th. Marco Salgado finishing in 14th with Shinsuke Tashima right in the middle of that fight all race long. Finishes with a nice top 15. Mikhail Zabala drops down to 16th with Jason Clapper, the other Clapper in the field, although I'm not sure if they're too related other than on iRacing. Finishes in 17th, up plus 13. Another Clapper, it's just a family affair, 18th. Bruno Santamaria, 19th. And Pedro Tamaladri in 20th.
21st is Alan Graham, then in the number 33 machine, with Matthew Maudsley and Bjorn Ackermann in 23rd. You then got Robert Plumley having to recover to 24th, ahead of Davide Riccardi and Sandeep Banerjee in 26th. You then got Juan E. Rodriguez and Michael Grissinger, 27th and 28th. Tobias Hernvey and Radoslav Babchik making up your top 30. 32 on the leading lap today. Don Peake would be 31st. David Tomaszki would be 32nd, and good enough for the championship for him today. 1 lap down would be Brad Fenley and Zen Carr. Technically, all 35 did finish this race. Henry Viramaki having to repair damages and would be 3 laps down at the end of racing procedure. Wow, what a season this one has proven to be. Joey, this is where we get a great chance to talk to some of our drivers, and I think we got one waiting for us, finished second overall here today. You stood by with Jorge Nieva.
Yeah, Jorge Nieva finishing second here at Okayama. What a way to kind of close out this season. Oh, Jorge, doesn't look like we've got you on the microphone input here. Might just be a Discord setting. Saw it light up, but don't have you actually on audio. Let's see if we can get some of those sorted around, and then make sure we can hear Mr. Nieva the next time he kind of hops in here.
Yep, so sometimes we get the issues like that which go through. But Joey, what a season we have had. It has been one of complete battle from start to finish. And when you put it down on paper, Henry Morse had more wins this season, but the consistency of Mick Claridge is what shines out.
Yeah, and I'm not too surprised to see that out of Mick Claridge. However, I welcome new drivers such as Henry Morse and others to kind of join us. Remember, Henry wasn't really kind of a regular front runner in the last handful of seasons. All of a sudden has kind of shown up and really kind of stuck it to the regular front runners.
Mick Claridge is stood by with us right now, a championship for Mick, and maybe the sweetest of all of them he's picked up in the Grand Prix Legends Lotus 49s. Mick, I just want to take you back in this season to Alton Park. 24 points scored, issues with your VR system, and understanding that it doesn't work for me, I'm going to call it quits this season. How does that mindset turn around from now to being champion?
Do you know what, Jake? It was a lot of other weeks as well. It was Phoenix. I couldn't practice Phoenix because my headset just kept going. Portland, I reinstalled iRacing on the morning of the race and qualified with the baseline setup with 53 laps of fuel in it. And there was so many things that made me just think this just isn't worth even trying for, you know? And then I just got a new headset because Jorge told me to get a new headset because I wasn't sure what it was, because it was like the graphics, the higher the graphics, the more it was kicking me out. So I thought it was something to do with the graphics card or the PC or whatever. You know, never dreamed it was something to do with a headset. Anyway, Jorge, go and get a headset, Mick, for something's sake, you know. And so I did, and then it was all right. I got the win streak at the end there and did well. So, but what a crazy championship. It was nuts. The whole thing was nuts. The messages we had on Discord at the start of the season was Jorge came on and said, I'm not sure how many races I can do. Nick did the same, Kevin did the same, and I was thinking, okay, all I've got to do is show up, you know, because Henry wasn't there, and then it, all of a sudden he started getting this win streak, and I just thought, no, how is this happening? I'm supposed to just be the only one here and get this, no. So yeah, unbelievable.
An absolutely incredible run over the course of this season, but talk about the resilience that you needed today. It looked like you had a second in the back pocket. You were very much there, but the middle of the race, Henry found a way to get back to you, and suddenly you had to be on best behavior.
Yeah, it really is the worst track I can ever visit on the service. I hate it. I'd rather have us raced at that figure 8 track this week. I hate this place. There's no grip whatsoever. And I've been working and trying to get the setup nice. And what it all boils down to is just overdriving in the second half of the race. It doesn't matter what setup I use, I'm going to melt the front tyres. And it happened. And then you have to back off. You have to back off to cool them down. And then as soon as you back off, the guy behind catches you up. And then what do? Do you know what I mean? Then you've got to try and moderate it and do it. But yeah, it was the worst part of it was the braking down into the hairpin off the back straight. I was good off the corner before to go down the back straight. It was just that braking zone. So I knew that there was going to be a side-by-side there from whoever this week, this race rather.
So let's talk about the moment that the championship was decided. Side by side, you and Henry heading into the hairpin and the revolver. You give him the room as he looks for the inside, and then he makes a mistake on the outside that gives you the championship. How critical was that for you in terms of just placing the car, leaving enough to give you that room? And critically, how do you plan on celebrating this championship?
Yeah, that was it. That was the moment, because the tyres were getting melty again. The fronts. It's never the rears. It's always the fronts. So there was going to be a point where he was going to get down into whatever those two stupid corners are, the left and the right, towards the end of the lap. I was terrible through there, so he would have got a run down there. And it's a shame he made the mistake there, because it would have been a good side by side for a good few corners, But celebrating, God, I didn't even think of that far ahead. I'm going to have a pasty.
That is what we call the Cornish Championship there for Mick Claridge, who gets it done and does wonderfully. A win here today for the championship, 3rd place overall, and proving just how wonderful it is. Joey's wandered down the paddock, and he's got the driver who finished 2nd in the championship, 5th place today, Henry Morse.
Yeah, Henry, I know that it's not the finishing result that you want, but you put together a great championship effort. And talk us through those last couple laps for you.
I knew that I had the measure of him going on the brakes at the end of the back straightaway, so I felt like that was my best chance. He had a good run onto the front straightaway, and he had a pretty good run onto the back straightaway, but I was better at the end of that straightaway. So I knew that was my chance. When his entry to the back straightaway was compromised by Zen car. But that was my chance, and I chucked it in a little too hard, a little too high into the following corner, which has a very awkward camber. You're kind of reliant on the curb of that turn to get you rotated, and when you're not on the apex of that corner, it's quite awkward. And I probably should have dialed it back from 10.5 tenths to like 8.5 tenths for that, but I just didn't do that mental math in that moment and went in there about as hard as I normally would have, and it was too much. So that was that. And I knew miracles can happen, and I stayed in it, and nothing crazy happened. They didn't all obliterate each other, or Mick didn't have a VR failure like he's had about 3 times this season. Maybe that wouldn't have even been that much of a miracle. But it was an awesome run. Congrats to Mick, of course, a very deserving champion, and excited for another season.
Well, and, it was a great way to kind of close it out with the battle that you guys had. And now that you've obviously lived it and it didn't work out for you, maybe would you try a different place to attack him for next time?
I think that was still my best chance to pass him. I think that I just would have not made the mistake in the following corner. I think if I could have kept it side by side for a couple turns, I probably would have had a good shot down that mini straightaway there, or at least have kept him closer to make another attack. I still think that was my best chance to get past him. I just think I have to come at this as not a rookie my next season, not make so many mistakes. This is such an unusual car to kind of wrap your head around, and God, I learned so much. I don't know if I've ever been pushed as hard as I have running these cars.
Well, and kind of turning the page and looking towards the next season here, and before we wrap up, does this kind of reignite the fire to come out here and become champion next season? Like you said, you're no longer going to be the rookie, so you're going to already have some notes going into next season.
Oh yeah, I think we have a couple of veterans that are threatening to make returns next season, so perhaps the competition will be even thicker. But yeah, certainly after a season like this, anything besides champion next season could be seen as a bit of a disappointment. So I'm definitely going to be applying all the lessons I've learned this season and giving everything I have to take it home next season. Although I think a small reconciliation, I do think I got the PDF from iRacing this season. But obviously that's not as cool as the Saturday morning show.
Well, we love having you out here, and you guys all heard it. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Henry Moore says champion next season or nothing. So I think that puts everybody on notice. And is there anybody you want to give a shout out to real fast?
No.
I think looks like he's already hopped out of here.
No, so he has nobody he wants to thank. He knows how important the racing was. Jorge Nieva will try and get back to once again 2nd place here today. Jorge, that was a good effort, but Jorge's very quick.
Do you copy now?
Now we do.
Sorry.
So Oye Samioa here today in terms of bringing together that result, was able to get the win. You were close, but did you need a few more laps to get back up to him? It looked like it just broke outside of a second, then he had a chance to close that pace down again.
No, I didn't need a few more laps. I needed a mistake, and it never came. He was really fast at this track. He always does, with every track, but especially at Okayama, he's really fast, and I had nothing to do.
Well, talk us through your season, because it's been one of ups and downs. You had a couple races where you couldn't quite turn up to, but the level of consistency between Henry and Mick is the only thing that's kept you out of championship contention. But after such a strong start to the season, where do you think it sort of fell off the rails a bit?
I knew it was really going to be really hard, because I was going to miss a couple of races because of the holidays. And when I made a mistake at the oval, I think it was Phoenix, I knew it was over, because I needed all the other races without a mistake, and it was impossible. But congrats to Mick and also Henry. They did an amazing season. It was really fun racing with them and with all the guys. I love this series.
It's a fantastic series. We can all agree here at the Global Sim Racing channel. But what do you think you need to do to turn third to first next season?
I need a bit of luck as usual. I'm not the fastest guy, but when someone makes a mistake, I usually am here. I'm there, so I need mistakes by other people.
Well, we'll hope for the best of luck for you, Jorge, for next season. It is a second place finish here today that brought it all together. But Joey, final thoughts as we bring another great season of the Grand Prix Legends back to a close.
I mean, final thoughts. I can't wait for the next one. I mean, we got an off week here with week number 13, so some silly shenanigans on iRacing. But every single season, all of these vintage series always put on a great show, and I think this season was a perfect example, coming down to literally the last couple laps.
Yeah, it goes to show that no season is complete until the final corners are turned and the checkered flag is seen. Want to give a massive thanks to the entire team who's brought this show to you here today, from Joey Atterbury alongside me, Daniel Costello in the director's chair, and Dougie Beard. This has been a Genesis Extreme production. But there is still more championships to be fought for on Championship Sunday. The IMSA Vintage Series will be looking at Watkins Glen to decide winners, and so too will the Classic Lotus Grand Prix Series over at Silverstone. The Porsche's Owners Club will be going off on Monday at the VIR Grand Course, and lest we forget, Major Series is back here in September. Road Atlanta is the battleground for that, so you'll definitely want to jump in and catch all of the great shows going along here on the Global Sim Racing channel. But it goes to show that a season can be fought for even through the heftiest amount of adversity. There is no, I would say, world in which you say Henry Morse isn't a deserving champion. One day, surely, he will get there and he will say, I am a champion, and will do so here in Grand Prix Legends. But it's still the time of the old guard. It's still the time of Mick Claridge, and the way he fought back, the way he dealt with those issues, it's maybe the most deserving title we've seen on the iRacing platform yet. We'll see you next season with more amazing action here with us on the Global Sim Racing channel.
This is iRacing.